Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So yeah, in this video I'm going to be talking about 10 movies for me that I wish I could rewatch again for the first time. So yeah, these are just 10 movies that I think I've gone through and racked my brain to see if I could pick out these movies that I've chosen just to talk about and say, I wish I could go into these movies again with a fresh perspective. And yeah, I'm just going to reel off the list of the movies I've chosen. This is just my list, of course. But yeah, that being said, going to kick it off with my first choice, and that is Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. This for me is my favorite Tarantino movie of all time. I think it's his best movie that he's ever made. Um, but yeah, I remember watching this for the first time and I was completely blown away by it. I hadn't seen anything like it. But yeah, that first time I watched this for me has always been the best time I've watched it. On repeat viewings, the movie is still great. It still holds up. It's still enjoyable and it's very entertaining. But that first viewing for me, the movie's never been as good as that first time I watched it. And I would just love to approach the movie again with a clean slate and know nothing about it and just go into it completely fresh, as it were. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it. It's a superb movie. I think all these movies I've chosen are, they're absolutely superb and they're regarded as as the best ever made. And yeah, Pulp Fiction I think is just a fantastic film, and I would love to just watch the movie again, completely blind, knowing nothing about it, and again for the first time, which is why it's on this list. So yeah, that is my first pick, Pulp Fiction. My second pick is actually a movie that was my first ever cinema experience. I think I was about 2 or 3 years old, and that is The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is a Christmas staple for me. I'll be watching it again this Christmas, and yeah, my first big screen experience, as it were. And I just remember being completely transfixed to the animation in this movie. The character designs in it were just absolutely stellar, in my opinion. I was a child who got scared easily by movies, and there are definitely some horror elements in this movie for me, but they never crossed that line with me. There are movies that I don't tend to go back to if I ever got scared as a child. I would kind of leave them alone and come back to them when I was a lot older, just to see if I could handle it any differently. But no, this one, it never really crossed that line for me as a child, and I just absolutely loved it. I still have the VHS of this, and I used to play it to death as a kid, and it's a superb film. The music in it is great, set designs, the characters in it are great, and I just love the movie. And again, I would love to see it for that first time again, first cinema experience. So yeah, can't really say much more about it than that. So that's my second pick, The Nightmare Before Christmas. My third pick was a horror movie from a franchise, and this was my first movie I saw from this franchise. And it might surprise a few people. Well, anyone who knows me knows that this was the first movie I saw from this franchise, and it is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. Yeah, so this was my gateway into the Halloween franchise. I knew nothing about Michael Myers at all. And yeah, it was this film for me that, sort of got me into that gateway of the horror movies that Channel 5 would always play through the week as a child, and I'll get to another one later on in this list. But yeah, I loved the concept of this movie. I saw this movie too young to sort of comprehend what a bad movie was. I know this movie isn't perfect. I think there's some scenes in it that don't really hold up, particularly how some characters behave. But that aside, I absolutely enjoy the concept of this movie. I think the execution is great. This movie has one of the best movie endings ever, period. I just enjoy the hell out of it. And it's really tense, and the plot of this movie is really, really evil. It's got one of the best villains and one of his best, the best sort of world takeover plot, shall we say, without going into too much detail. But yeah, I just think it's a superb film. I love the designs of all of the masks in this movie, and the movie just drips and oozes Halloween. And yeah, I would love to just, see it again for that first time at the right, I think it was the right age to see it. It was, as most of us horror fans were, really young, watching movies that we shouldn't, just having an absolute blast and ball with them, being terrified going to bed. And Halloween 3 was one of those movies for me, and it's just absolutely great. So yeah, that is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now with this next pick, I'm kind of cheating because it's two movies. And when I show you the two movies, you might think, okay, where's he going with this? So yeah, the next two movies I have are Bohemian Rhapsody and Wonder. So yeah, you might think, why these two movies? So yeah, these two movies for me, to put it quite bluntly, these two movies were two of the worst cinema experiences I have ever had in my entire life. Particularly Bohemian Rhapsody. They were just, both these showings had people in there who just didn't know how to behave at cinema. And I'm someone who, my cinema experiences, if they don't go well, it kind of taints the movie for me. I don't really like to go back to it. I think these two movies are absolutely fantastic, by the way. But if I have a bad experience viewing a movie through whatever external causes, it really does taint the movie for me. I'm someone who, all the movies in my collection hold a special place for me. I'm always reminded of, where I was, who I was with, what I was doing, and every film in my collection is a sort of a memory holder of those events for me. If anyone's ever seen the movie Diner, Daniel Stern's character he's pretty much the same with his record collection. Everything holds a special place, and everything has its place with me, and movies are my gateway to that, to my memories. And these two movies really, the experience let the movies down for me, and it's not the movie's fault. But I would love to just watch these movies again with a fresh perspective and not have those bad tainted memories. It's really bad. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way, but when you have a bad cinema experience, it can taint the movie for you, and it's not the movie's fault. Because I really do enjoy these films, but I just have a difficult time going back to them. And I would just love to watch them again without those bad memories, shall we say? So yeah, that's my next pick. I've chosen Wonder and Bohemian Rhapsody. So yeah, my next choice was a movie I bought completely blind. I've upgraded it to the Arrow 4K. And it's a superb movie. Another movie written by Quentin Tarantino, directed by Tony Scott. And the cast is just too many names to mention, it really is. And that is True Romance. Yeah, I adore this film. I think it's fantastic. Like I said, I love the cast in this movie. The story is brilliant. And the third act is just superb. It's one of the best third acts I've ever seen. It for lack of a better word, it blew me away. To be honest, when everything sort of comes to this head in this movie, producer's Lee Donowitz, whether it's the flat he's renting or his penthouse or whatever it is, when everything comes to a head in this room, it just blew me away. I just adored the movie. I thought it was fantastic. I think Christian Slater's a great lead as Clarence. He's superb. Patricia Arquette as Alabama. The two of them just have superb chemistry. Even the side characters, there's a sequence with Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken in this movie, which is just one of the most memorable scenes you'll ever see, with just two actors bouncing off each other. It's great. It's superb, and I would love to go into it completely blind again, shall we say, because I just really enjoyed the hell out of this on that first view. And kind of similar to Pulp Fiction, whenever I rewatch the movie, it's just never as good as that first viewing. It just isn't for me. It's still a superb film, it really is, but yeah, I just find myself not enjoying it as much as that first viewing. It's still great though, absolutely is still great. So yeah, that is my next pick, True Romance. So yeah, for the next film I've chosen, this is the other horror film for me that I grew up on. It's one of the most entertaining horror films I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. And I think most people who grew up with this film would probably agree with me on that. And that is Fright Night. This is my favourite vampire movie of all time. I absolutely adore it. I adore the soundtrack. I adore the cast, the characters. I was a big sort of Roddy McDowall fan at the time. I loved Planet of the Apes as a kid. And I saw that this movie was going to be played on Channel 5, and I saw his name was in the cast in the TV guide, and I knew I had to watch it. And I've never really looked back with this movie. It was it was just a superb horror film. Not one that necessarily scared me as a child, but I just found it so entertaining nonetheless. It's just brilliant. It really is. I can't say much more about it than that. And again, not to take my movies or my memories of the movie or anything like that, but I would love to watch it for the first time again with a fresh pair of eyes and experience it that way. And yeah, it's just a wonderful film. It really is. It's superb. I still think this movie doesn't get the recognition that it deserves, to be honest. I know everyone who's seen it loves it, gives it that high praise, but I still think it goes quite unsung, to be honest. Second grossing highest movie of 1985 as well. Horror movie, I should say, only behind Elm Street 2. But yeah, superb film, absolutely love it. Favourite vampire movie. And yeah, I would love to watch it again with a fresh pair of eyes, because it really is that wonderful. So yeah, my next pick is another 4K release. I've picked up the Arrow label one, and that is RoboCop. Yeah, I was way too young to see this movie when I first saw it. I think I was about 7 or 8. And I just remember being completely traumatized by the violence in this film. There's no other word for it. So much so that I had to turn it off. And I came back to it the next day to finish it off. And the movie didn't get any better in terms of traumatizing me, shall we say. But yeah, as an adult, I love this film. I don't really want to say I'd rather watch it again I wish I'd watched it as an adult instead of as a child, because sometimes I think it's good to have those traumatic memories with movies, I think. Just not too many of them. But yeah, nonetheless, it's a wonderful action movie. I love how unapologetic the violence is in this film. The cast of bad guys in this movie, you love to hate them. They are just human garbage. They're just absolute ass, to be honest with you. They just really are. And you love to see them get their comeuppance, you really do. And yeah, I would just, again, love to see this movie with a fresh pair of eyes and go into it completely blind. Because I sort of was aware of the cartoon as a kid. It wasn't something I watched religiously. And then I thought the movie was going to be something similar. It isn't in any way, shape or form. But yeah, it's a wonderful movie. I'd go as far as say it's a masterpiece. I just adore it. There's nothing wrong with it in my eyes. And yeah, I would just love to go back and rewatch this again for the first time, as I just really get a kick out of this film. So yeah, that is RoboCop. Next up, this is possibly the most recent film on the list I've chosen. This movie came out, I think, the back end of last year. It was possibly the most talked about movie going into 2022. And it is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now I know this is fairly recent, and my feelings on this movie are still quite fresh. But for me, what I loved about this movie going into it was the build up. The sort of going into the cinema to see this movie, the anticipation and the speculation caused this sort of chemical reaction in me that just got me so excited, and I just was dying to see this film. I was just dying to see whatever was going to be on the screen, whatever the movie makers were going to throw at us. Yeah, the movie itself obviously has one of possibly the worst kept secrets in Hollywood, without spoiling it. And it delivered for me. It really did. It was just sort of that anticipation, that build up. I've never really felt that for another movie, and Spider-Man No Way Home really sort of captured that for me. It's a great movie as well. I think it's fantastic. I just wish Marvel would make more films like this. It just feels like all their efforts and all of their focus went into this movie for Phase 4, and everything else just has kind of fallen by the wayside for me. And just some movies have worked, some haven't, but this one's the real standout of what Marvel have been trying to do lately. But yeah, like I said, oh god, the anticipation of going into this film was just, it was off the charts, and my expectations were definitely met with this film. And yeah, I've tried rewatching it again, and I don't have that buzz. It's still a great film. It's still fantastic. Not taking anything away from it, but that first time I watched that film, the buzz and anticipation, it's just never going to be there again. And I would love to recapture it and go into it again completely blind without having seen it. So yeah, that is No Way Home. Next up is a movie I grew up with. I still have my special edition VHS of this film. And yeah, this movie possibly has one of the biggest twists in movie history ever. And it is, of course, The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, so growing up as a kid with Star Wars, I grew up with the 97 special edition VHSs. I saw all three of them at the cinema. But Empire Strikes Back for me was always my least favourite as a kid. Return of the Jedi was the one I always slept in the most. In the second place for me was probably New Hope. I enjoyed New Hope and I enjoyed Jedi more, I think, because those movies are kind of conclusive. The first movie is sort of self-contained, and Jedi wraps up the trilogy as a whole. This one I just felt was kind of too dark for me, and it just kind of felt like that middle movie you had to get through to finish the trilogy. But looking back on it in reflection, it's possibly, well, for me, it's definitely the best Star Wars movie ever made. I just think it's a fantastic film. That certainly isn't up for debate. But yeah, I would kind of like to go into this movie again with a fresh pair of eyes, and just maybe not have the negative connotations I had to it when I was younger, just thinking it was that second story where the villains were taking force, and it delivers with its title, The Empire Strikes Back. They mean business. They're hurt from the defeat in the first film, and they do mean business. They're not something to be messed with or taken lightly. And yeah, it really executes that story well. The stakes are there. It's just a superb film. Well, what else can I say about it? It's The Empire Strikes Back. We all know and we all love it. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it. It's just a superb film, and I would love to go back and rewatch it and sort of maybe have that respect for it that I didn't have when I was younger, that I do now. So yeah, that is The Empire Strikes Back. And my last pick is one of my favorite superhero movies ever. Shall we say? I adore this film. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I was very privileged enough to go and see this film on the cinema a couple of years ago before COVID broke out. Saw a double bill of this with its sequel as well. And that movie is Tim Burton's 1989 Batman. This is a funny movie with me, simply because, and this is why it's on this list, I have no memory whatsoever of seeing this movie for the first time. It's as if before I was born, someone implanted this movie into my mind, and I can never ever remember of a time having not seen this movie. It has always been imprinted in my brain. I don't know why. It always has been there. I just cannot remember a time having not known or seen this movie. I just have no memory whatsoever of giving this movie a first watch. And that's why it's on this list, because I would love to have that memory of seeing it for the first time. I don't have it with this film. This is possibly the most watched movie in my collection. I've had it on VHS, I've had it on DVD, I've had it on Blu-ray, and I've got it on 4K. I even had it taped off the TV, and I still have the tape for it. I remember breaking the tab on it because I didn't want the movie to be recorded over by accident. And yeah, that's exactly why it's on this list. I just have no memory of seeing it for the first time. The movie's always been there for me in terms of my memory. I have no recollection of going into this movie with any sort of anticipation or any sort of speculation. Yeah, I just don't. It's always been there. It's a weird one. It really is. So that's why I would love to watch this for the first time and just have that memory of seeing it. It's very strange. But yeah, that's movies for you, I guess. And yeah, I have a blast with it. It's just one of my favorite movies ever. I just adore it. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it. It's one of my favorite movies, period. And as long as I've been alive, I can always, it's always been in my mind, this film. Yeah, it's that movie for me. So yeah, that is Tim Burton's Batman. So yeah, those are my picks of 10 movies that I would love to go back and watch for the first time with a fresh pair of eyes, guys. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'm going to leave it there and just say thanks very much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.